We had a guitar error. How many fucking guitarists does it take to fix a guitar? Fucking all of them.
Welcome to the Riff Crew. I'm your host, Steve Mitchell, back for another great edition of The Electric Church, and we'll be looking forward to some of the shows coming up in 2023, as well as looking back at some of the great shows of 2022. And joining me, as always, is my great mate over in Washington, D.C., Skull. How you doing, mate?
Hey, man. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen in Cyberland. As you know, this is Skull broadcasting from past, present, and future in the Chamber of the Cosmos. You're with my good friend Steve Oz in Ozland. I'm an off again, on again DC bomb rock band, Black Manta. I've been in the scene for over 30 years, know people from all over the scene. And as usual, really excited to be here. And for Electric Church, I just have to say, welcome back again, my friends, to the show that never ends. That's why we're here. We're here to worship at the Electric Church, talk about gigs that we saw, everything, music that influenced us over the year. And as you know, we've already mentioned this a couple of times. We're a little behind on our electric churches, so some of the gigs that I've seen are a few months past, but just it's really cool. Just excited to talk about them, and we can just jump right in if you want. If you have anything to mention or any books that you've been reading recently.
Funny you mentioned books, because I collected some texts from an op shop. Do you have op shops in the US? Are they called thrift stores where people donate?
Oh yeah, sure.
And so there's I like to peruse books in these shops, and I came across a collection of texts with one of your favorite authors, and I thought I couldn't not pick these books up, and I'm not sure if you can see that. I'll show you in the other camera as well.
Oh, L. Ron Hubbard.
That's right. So I've got four.
My favorite guy.
4 of these volumes. I don't think they're Scientology. I think they're just his
yeah, Mr. Scientology.
His sci-fi novels. I think they're just sci-fi novels, not Scientology tomes, if you like, because I haven't read them yet. But
yeah, he was considered a terrible and second-rate science fiction author, so he said, "I'll invent a religion," and he did.
And
and the religion is just as bad as his writing.
We got to pay it to him. I mean, how many billions of dollars have they saved on tax by creating Scientology? It's quite
I don't know. I mean, if you're into religion for money, then that's that's a part of the game, I guess.
Well, coming back to our religion, I know you've got to go back maybe to August for your first show that you wanted to talk about.
Yep, the Electric Church. Well, let's see here. A lot of these 2022, as we've discussed, for me specifically, it was a bucket list year. After the pandemic, the horrible pandemic, a lot of people suffered through that. Just happy to get through it and things getting back to normal. I was like, you know what? Just happy to be here. Happy to be alive, just like everybody else is. And all the performers, everyone just wants to get out there and just perform and to gig for their fans. And I figured I need to take this opportunity to really just take advantage of all these guys gigging and bands that I never had a chance to see, or a lot of the times I'd like to go to shows with other people. To me, it's more of like it's one of those things where everyone goes together, and it's but I've realized that not everyone's going to go to the shows with me, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna have to start going myself. So this year I had a huge laundry list there's a few I didn't get to see, like I didn't get to see Anthrax, and I didn't get to see Testament. I couldn't see everything, but there was a bunch of them that I was able to check off this year, and I'm super fortunate and super happy about that. And again, because I talked about Paul McCartney and Santana and Kraftwerk. I mean, just a lot of amazing bands that I've seen in 2022. And one of them, another huge bucket list band for me, was this band, Cheap Trick. I always wanted to see them. Every time they came through town, I would miss them. Just a fucking great rock band. They invented, if you will, the style of music called power pop. There's a lot of Beatles influenced in it, kind of punky, kind of poppy, and that's where the whole power pop genre moniker comes from. You know, I think that they kind of single-handedly invented that sound. Um, but I love them. You know, my favorite album from them is this album right here, Dream Police. And they didn't, it was at Merriweather. I've talked about Merriweather before as a famous historical venue. Supposedly Led Zeppelin, when they came over to the States, that was the very first place they played in the States, was at Merriweather. So it's a great venue. Um, and I've always wanted to see these guys, and I was luckily I was able to go. And it was one of those shows like I had postponed a couple of times because of the pandemic, etc. And it actually started off with Dream Police, which is one of my favorite songs. So that was really cool. They didn't get to play for very long. It was just two bands. They were the opening act. Um, but the thing, I mean, all these guys are getting older. I mean, and Rick Nielsen, you know, he went. Some of these guys, you can start to see their age up there. I mean, he was still jamming, he was still picks out in the audience, and because he's the goofball in the band, you know, he's the guy that plays like the guitar with the five necks on it, and you know all that shit. And they were great. You know, but I'm hoping that if I get to see them again, that they would be headlining so they could play a longer set. You know, they played all the hits, you know, Surrender and, you know, basic, you know, a couple of tracks off this.
Who was headlining? Sorry.
Oh, I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
That's
Sorry,
coming
that's
next.
the spoiler.
A very good question. Yep. Uh, where is it? Yeah, I Want You to Want Me and Surrender. Of course, they played that in Dream Police and all their other hits. And I will say the audience, I wasn't too keen on the audience. I think my people were just, people were still kind of still getting used to coming out, and it was a lot of fucking older people. And I'm getting ready to show you who headlined the whole thing. Um, it was because Cheap Trick opened up for this guy right here. It's like I don't have a whole lot of Rod Stewart. I only have Jeff Beck, Rod Stewart. So it was the Rod Stewart who, you know, I stuck around. He was great. He played all the hits, Maggie May and Do You Think I'm Sexy and you know, and all that shit. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of older people there. I mean, there was some of the younger rocker guys that were there to really see Cheap Trick. Like I never seen so many lawn chairs in my life. People were there and they're just sitting down and not like rocking out, you know?
Well, they
And
needed a rocking chair so they could rock out.
basically rock, you know, you're in my way. Sit down. It's like, you know, everyone paid the same fucking ticket price. Like if you want to stand up, you got to stand up, you know, anyway, it was not my favorite audience. Hey, you're in my way. I can't see. I'm blind, you know. But so that unfortunately did take away from it a little bit, the whole experience. But I'm glad I finally got to see Cheap Trick and check them off my bucket list. I would love to see them again when they're headlining, honestly. Um, Rod Stewart was cool. He sounded fantastic. He played a song "People Get Ready." That was a song that he covered back in the early '90s, and that was really a great song. And you know they waved. Everyone's into the you know the unity with Ukraine. Everyone's waving the Ukraine flags to show solidarity with them. So they did that too, and there were people. They had he had these women, like these five or six women on stage that they were playing violins and banging on drums and doing like tap dancing, and it was a whole spectacle. Um, but it was fun. You know, I'm glad I got to see Rod Stewart, but I was really there for Cheap Trick. Um, and after that, where's that? I don't know if you have any questions about the Cheap Trick or Rod Stewart show.
How many?
You know anything about?
How many of the classic or former like original members were in Cheap Trick? Because I was just actually looking at Suite this morning, and like 3 of the 4 classic members have all died. There's just the guitarist left. So, how much of the band still remains?
That's funny you say that about Sweet. They're one of my favorite bands, and that's correct. That's unfortunate. Yeah, there's only Andy Scott's the only guy left, but that's a great question, and the answer will shock you. They're all still alive. All 4.
That does
all
shock
4
me.
of them.
That's incredible.
Right. I know, but even more shocking, unfortunately, the drummer no longer plays with them, because the whole gimmick with the band was I don't know if you know the whole gimmick with Cheap Trick was they had the 2 pretty boys, Robin Zander and Tom Peterson, the bass player. They were the pretty boys in the band. And then you had the ugly goofballs, Rick Nielsen on guitar and Bunny Carlos on drums. And so that was kind of their gimmick, is like the 2 pretty boys and the 2 goofballs in the band. But Bunny's still alive. Rick Nielsen who did he get to play drums? Something happened about 10 years ago. I guess they were taking a long hiatus or something, and when the band got back together, they just didn't ask him back. He was like, "Oh, sorry, I got X so-and-so to be in the band." So guess who plays the drums now? Take a wild guess.
Ringo Starr.
That would be fucking awesome. No, his kid. His fucking kid plays the drums.
Yeah.
Rick Nielsen's kid. You're saying okay, like it's okay.
No,
Okay.
I get it, because it's like the Led Zeppelin reunion. They brought back
that nepotism, man.
Yeah.
That seems to be happening more and more. And Robin Zander's kid. Let me see here. His kid was there playing the guitar and sang a song. So it's getting very nepotistic with some of these bands. I don't think it's very cool. I think it's super uncool, to be quite honest. It would have been great to see Bunny Carlos. He's a fantastic drummer, has a lot of great swing, great beat, but it is all the original. It's Tom Peterson on bass. He famously plays that 12-string bass. It's Robin Zander on vocals, rhythm guitar, Tom Peterson on 12-string bass and vocals, and Rick Nielsen, and now Rick Nielsen's kid. And the thing about Robin Zander, I have to be honest, man, he sounded fantastic. We keep talking about how these guys know it's getting closer to the last hurrah. They're pulling out the stops. They're really going for it. And they sound like, I don't know, like they're going to vocal exercises or not partying or going to bed early at night or whatever it is that they have to do to stay in good form. All these guys have been really in fantastic form this past year. A lot of these older guys. Rod Stewart sounded fantastic. You think that 74 or 5 or whatever, he'd be up there creaking around like with a cane or whatever, but he was running around on stage. He looked amazing. But that's a really good question. Yep, they're all still alive, but unfortunately Bunny's no longer in the band. The next show I went to was we have contact with Chip, and he, what group is that again that he belongs to? He's the one that he gave us the tickets for the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame. Yeah. He gave us tickets for the Dead Daisies show. So thank you, Chip. Much appreciated. Thank you for that. Shout out to him. So that was really awesome. That was actually at the State Theater, we have a lot of local clubs. Some are in Northern Virginia, some are in Baltimore, some are in DC proper. That one's in Northern Virginia. That that was also a bucket list thing for me because, interestingly enough, there might be some huge Dead Daisies fans out there. They're what you would consider a traditional rock band in the Aerosmith vein. Um, and you might not know anything about them. Are you familiar with the Dead Daisies at all?
Not the history. So I know Glenn's fronting the band now, but before that, I
Okay,
understand
I
there's a
was going to
history
get to
before
that.
that.
But the band is basically was started by a guy named Dave Lowie, who is an Aussie. He's from Australia. He made his millions in IT and technology, but he was a rocker at heart. So when he made his millions, he wanted to start a fucking rock band. So he did, and he cobbled together the greatest, some great rock guys, and he I don't know how it works. I'm guessing it was like, don't ever worry about money, or because you know how hard it is to tour these days and to record, and it's a completely different scene than it was just 10 years ago. But he's the main guy in the band. He's a rhythm guitar player, co-writes the songs. And has been a bit of a revolving door. Um, and it's super cool that, he actually had the vision and the dream to do something like that to keep, rock and roll alive, which is a true rock and roll disciple to do that. But obviously, one of the reasons I wanted to see him, because this new incarnation, not only does it have Doug Aldrich, which I'll get to in a second, who's one of the last of the true fucking shredders, amazing, amazing guitar player. But it has Glenn Hughes in the band now, the voice of rock. So that was a huge draw for me. I'd never seen Glenn Hughes. Obviously, anybody out there that knows the history of Glenn, he started off in trapeze. I mean, his catalog is incredible. He started off in that heavy band Trapeze, and then joined it with Deep Purple Mark III, Deep Purple, and then after that, he was on one Sabbath album, Seventh Star, famously Tony Iommi Seventh Star album, but he's all constantly producing, constantly performing. He loves to play music. That's what, there was only like maybe 150. It was a Sunday night. There was only about 150, 200 people there. But it was amazing. And Doug Aldrich, I mean, that was another draw. Like I said, his guitar tone is incredible. He plays like a Les Paul Gold Top. Um, and he was one of these guys. Me and my friend would joke, we call him the Golden God. He has this huge mane of hair. Of course, he's a good-looking guy. He's like in his 50s, but he still looks like, I don't know, 30s, like he's in a cryogenic chamber at night or something like that. I have no idea, but he sounds amazing. Um, he actually is a Dio alum. I first saw him during a Dio tour, and he was amazing. He played on this. I'm just going to show this real quick. It's Dio Holy Diver Live. I highly recommend you get this. This guy is a total shred monster. He's apparently, the story goes that when he was a young guy and he first moved out to LA, he met Randy Rhoads, hugely inspired by him, like everybody else was. Um, so Doug Aldrich, man, the Golden God, amazing shred master. Anything that guy touches is incredible. I highly recommend checking him out. I came in late to the game. I mean, I knew about him on Dio and Killing the Dragon album, but I've really, in the past few years with the Dead Daisies, have really gotten into him and have really appreciated his work. He goes all the way back to a band called Lion that wrote the song track to the animated Transformers movie from '86, which is wild. So anyway, Doug Aldrich, man, we'll talk about him more in the future, I'm sure. He's, like I said, he's one of the last of that great from that generation that is a total like shred monster, that maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with. But before I continue, I did want to say that the band that opened up for the Dead Daisies is a band called Enough's Enough. Now it's a glam rock band. I was never like a huge fan of them. They were fun. They played a lot of Beatles stuff. They were a lot of those bands were kind of Beatles influenced. But I mentioned it because my friend that passed away a few years ago, I don't know if you can see this, my friend English John right here, who passed away a few years ago. He he loved all that shit. So it was just kind of, it was cool to see him and kind of feel English John's presence there and being like, just laughing. He would have laughed. He'd be like, "Hey man, I know you hate this shit, but now you're watching it." Um, I also went with Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson is my friend. He's my, sometimes my technical assistant. He takes pictures, and there'll be some pictures here that will pop up from the gigs that I saw this time, and that was great. But the thing about the Dead Daisies, I highly recommend you checking them out. Their new the albums. The thing about Glenn Hughes, man, he doesn't fuck around. He's always wanting to produce new music. They've already dropped 2 albums already in 2020 and 2021, and so Holy Ground in 21 and no, hold in 2020. Holy Ground in 21 and Radiance just last year. So they were playing a bunch of stuff off the new album. But obviously for me as an old school guy, I was hoping, I don't like to cheat. I don't like to see the set list. So I was hoping that they would play some older stuff, and they did. They didn't disappoint. And he actually played a couple of tracks off of Burn. So that was really exciting. They played Burn and they played Mistreated. So that was a real treat. That was amazing. That was a huge bucket list thing for me to be able to see Glenn Hughes. And he was just the guy totally into the music. I mean, he loves the audience. I know over in Europe they played to thousands of people, and here they were playing to like a couple hundred people. It didn't matter. They were playing their hearts out. They loved the audience. They were really feeling the energy. So that was really cool. Was like a huge bucket list thing for me. And after that, this is a kind of another bucket list thing. Every 2022 was the bucket list year, and it's going to continue in 2023, of course. But I've never seen Pink Floyd, but I did see Roger Waters, and I heard that Nick Mason's Saucerful of Secrets was coming to town. And man, if you are even remotely a Pink Floyd fan, I highly recommend you go see it. They don't play anything after, nothing from Dark Side or after. It's everything pre-Dark Side of the Moon. So that was another one of those things that had been canceled and postponed because of the pandemic. They basically play everything off the Ummagumma album. It's a cross between the Ummagumma album and this Live in Pompeii. So you get really just fucking incredible. I love Floyd. They start off with One of These Days, and and they also played a lot of deep cuts, Syd Barrett cuts, like Arnold Lane and Vegetable Man and Candy and Current Bun and stuff like that. And Astronomy Domini. It was just really amazing. If you, I don't know if they're going to do it anymore, but if you get a chance to see them, I highly recommend it. Like I said, they played stuff off the More album. They played the Nile song, which is a super, super heavy psychedelic song off the More soundtrack, which that was a real surprise. Like I said, I didn't go in, I didn't cheat at all. I just went in totally fresh, and that's the best way to experience a gig, as far as I'm concerned. And they played Interstellar Overdrive and they played the song "Obscured by Clouds," set the controls for "The Heart of the Sun." It's just the set list. They played for almost 3 hours. Totally incredible. The guy, Nick Mason was super humble. Super happy that everybody was there. One of the main guys in the band is a guitar player from a band called Spandau Ballet, who was like this pop band from the 80s. And but he was told that everyone was totally into it, man. The last song they played was a song called Bike, which is a Sid song, which is weird. And Emily played, and they played the Echoes, which is it's just like a 25-30 minute song, like a 25 minute song. It's this whole side B of the album Metal, and which is also on here, also on Live in Pompeii, which, as you know earlier, I actually got a chance to go visit where this was recorded when we went to Italy. So everything's going full circle right now. But one of the things I have about 1 million black shirts, so I don't really buy black shirts anymore. I still buy, and I have way too many concert shirts, so I don't buy any unless I'm totally blown away by them. And I saw one, and I couldn't pass it up. I had to buy this. It was really fucking cool. It says Nick Mason, Saucerful Secrets right there. In fact, after I bought the shirt, I happened to notice that he was wearing it on stage, so that was pretty cool. I'm not sure if you have any questions or any thoughts about that, or about the Dead Daisies. You didn't get to chime in about that. If you want to go back to that.
Well, Glenn sounds great on the new material. How is he live?
Sounds fucking amazing. Man, I don't know if you know about this. A lot of those guys in the 70s, they struggled with drugs and alcohol. He since has cleaned himself up. Going 30 plus 30, almost going on 40 years, he's cleaned himself up. And so his religion is like the Electric Church, like our religion. His religion is music, is rock and roll. I think I think he's one of these vegetarian vegan guys. He's one of these yoga guys. And we've talked it before. It's like, if you're in this for the long haul, that's what you have to do. He loves rock and roll. He loves performing. He loves writing and making music. And he was hitting those notes, man, like those unearthly, like high pitched notes. So live, if they ever come down there, well, I mean, Dave Lowy is from there. Lowy, he's from Australia, so I'm sure that they'll probably tour down there if you ever get a chance to see them. Really a fantastic band. And if you don't know anything about Doug Aldrich, just go and just be completely. He's a face melter, dude. He's a fucking face. He'll melt your face with his shredding skill. Just like, with whatever he's doing with it, whatever wizardry he's doing, he'll melt your face off. I highly recommend checking them out. What about Floyd? What about the Nick Mason thing? You got any questions about that? Any thoughts?
I'm not big on Floyd. That's not a band that I've really paid a lot of attention to. So,
sure. I would say from that period, definitely. I mean, obviously, Sid, that's a whole another ball game, because he was only in for a short period of time. The first album and a few singles. I love that first album, but it's very different from the rest of the Floyd that people are used to. But I would also say I would recommend this. It's a great live album. It's like part live, part studio, but the Metal album as well, Meddle. But this too, man. This is fucking amazing. You said you've seen this, right?
Yeah. I love the aesthetics of that.
Yeah, yeah. Just for the live sound, it's really, really incredible. If you're gonna get started on that period of Floyd, I definitely would say start with Ummagumma and Metal, and then take it from there. And if you're ever interested in the Sid, there's like This recently released a box set of all of Sid's shit. So, because there was a bunch of, I wanted to talk about Vegetable Man. I know there were some serious deep cuts. Vegetable Man is one of the songs that has been famously and notoriously bootlegged to death. Was never, I don't think it was ever officially released. And it was funny because Nick Mason would do like these little intros and he would talk about the songs and he was like, well, this song, you know, this Vegetable Man, he started talking about all these bands that he's familiar with or they played with. Like we played with the German Pink Floyd cover band, and this he's talked about all these cover bands and all these bands that play Floyd. And he's like, there's one song that no band ever plays, Vegetable Man. It's like super. So that was a soup. Talk about deep cuts. That was a super. All of it was all deep cuts because it was pre-Dark Side, basically. But the Sid stuff, the current song and the bike and the Vegetable Man and Nile song. Well, that's not a Sid song, but those were all super super deep cuts. But it was funny because he was like, yeah, everyone plays this and that, but we're the only cover band that plays Vegetable Man. It's like we're the only band that plays Vegetable Man. And after that, wrapping it up here with one more thing. I wanted to say that this was another huge bucket list. This was a huge bucket list show because this guy was in a band that's notorious or famous for basically three of the most influential guitar players from England during the 60s, besides Jimi Hendrix, of course, were in this one band. Do you know what that famously, do you know what this band is? A lot of people out there probably know or they've heard of this story before, but three of the most influential, important, experimental, one of the guys that kind of started the whole experimentation with the guitar, the heaviness of it, were all in this one band called the Yardbirds. And it started off with, Eric Clapton and Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page, obviously, famously from Cream. And then, there weren't too many other bands that have done anything. Maybe, yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of too many bands. And maybe John Mayall's Blues Breakers, I think, had a bunch of guys that went on to be super famous, like
Well,
Mick Taylor.
I guess the only band that comes to mind is Alcatraz because they had Yngwie on the first album and Steve Vai on the second. But they didn't play together,
Right,
obviously.
right. Yep. But John Mayall had Mick Taylor, who went on to the Stones, and then all of the Fleetwood Mac guys were in that band. But the Yardbirds famously and amazingly had three of the most influential, important rock guitarists of all time in one band. Eric Clapton went on to Cream, and then Jeff Beck just did his own thing, the Jeff Beck group, and then Jimmy Page, of course, Led Zeppelin. But I've never seen Eric Clapton in any kind of incarnation, live or otherwise. I mean, in band or otherwise. I've never seen Jimmy Page in any incarnation, unfortunately. And Jeff Beck came to town. I was like, okay, this is the year. I'm not fucking missing Jeff Beck. I'm going to this. Um, I forgot to mention that Nick Mason was at the Lincoln Center in Washington, D.C. I'd never been there before in my life. I just got a ticket and just showed up. That's what I've been doing these days. It's just like I just get a fucking ticket and just show up. Sometimes the week before, sometimes the day of. Um, um, the Nick Mason show, I actually got a couple of months in advance because I heard that it was going to sell out. Um, but the Jeff Beck ticket, I just got like a few days ahead of time. just showed up. It was at this venue at the Anthem. I've been there a couple of times where I saw Kraftwerk play there. I saw Priest play there. It's a fucking pain in the ass to get to, but you know, whatever. I was like, no one wanted to go. Once again, I went myself. And at the last minute, they're like, Jeff Beck and special guests opening or performing with Jeff Beck. Do you know who played with him? Have you heard about this? Edward Scissorhands, Captain Jack Sparrow.
What?
Captain Jack Sparrow, that's right. None other than Johnny Depp performed with Jeff Beck.
Okay, I wasn't.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
Isn't that fucking crazy? You know that Johnny's a rocker, right? I know that there's all this scandal and that's all this unfortunate business recently, but he moved to LA as a kid because he wanted to be in a rock band. He stumbled into the movie business by accident. He's just one of those fucking lucky kids, one of those lucky people. Anyway, it happened at the last second. So of course, when that happened, the ticket sold out in 1 second. I already happened to have my ticket. And I have an older friend, Crazy Steve, who was like, you know, he saw all these cats back in the day, and he's like, you have to go see it. It'll be awesome. He keeps talking about how this guy's a guitar wizard, a wizard. I was like, you're speaking my language, man. I know a fucking guitar wizard when I hear and I see one. Well, I got to tell you, man, he was absolutely right. I've never seen. If he ever comes to your area, you have to see him just for the experience, just for the fucking experience. He's doing things with his guitar. I have no idea what he uses talk boxes. He's not a singer, so has a talk box and he's talking through his guitar and he's like making all like robot noises. I don't know. You know, before, you know, I know there's like Buckethead and does all this wild shit on his guitar, but before Buckethead, there was Jeff Beck, man. And it was incredible. He played for almost an hour by himself before Johnny Depp even popped up. And then when he showed up, they started to play a song called Rumble, which you might not be familiar with, which is a very famous instrumental song written by a local guy in DC, a local guitar hero called Link Ray, who is also, you know, has American Indian lineage, and he supposedly arguably invented the power chord in that song called Rumble. You should check it out. So that was a huge homage to the DC area and to Link Ray and to the fans. That was super cool. So when they came out, because it's an instrumental, like when they come out, they just came out and played that. You'll have to check out the song, but everybody out there in Cyberland should go check out Rumble right now. Just because it supposedly was the forerunner or the invention of the whole power chord. Anyway, it was incredible. I don't know much about Jeff Beck's discography, except I do. It's funny that I did see Rod Stewart and Jeff Beck in the same year. This is one of those albums that has two albums in one, Truth and Beck Ola. But I also do have this on cassette. It has two of his most famous albums, which are kind of like jazz and fusion rock. Blow by Blow and Wired I have on a double cassette, so that's very cool. Those are amazing albums. He was also in a band called the Jeff Beck Group. Beck, Bogart, and Appice, with the two guys from Carmine Appice was in the two when Cactus split up. They got together with Jeff Beck and they came out with an album, which is an awesome album. But yeah, man, that it just the amazing shows just keep happening. It's like that's what this electric church is about. It's about just worshiping at the power of rock and the power of music. And I'm still a couple of months behind, so the next time we do it, it will still be in 2022 because it was a fucking crazy epic year. one thing I wanted to say real quick before I forget, I wanted to do this at the beginning of the show, and I forgot, was that for our 71 versus 21 show, the last show that we did, I did mention, I always try to mention one album from that year that I enjoyed or that was awesome. I did mention Joe Hasselvander's album, but it was towards the end of the show. It might have gotten buried. I know that show ended up being like 2 hours long, so I know this might have got buried towards the end. I just wanted to say this was my favorite album of 2021. Highly recommended. Everyone should go out. He's one of the original godfathers of Doom. Support Joe Hasselvander, support the Doom scene, support the local Doom scene. I know he hasn't lived in this area for a while. He lives in Mass now, but his roots and his spirit is still here. So go check this out and go support Joe. I just wanted to just mention that real quick again. But yeah, man, that's it for right now for this episode of Electric Church. And then next one I'll finally be totally caught up for 2022. So you have any thoughts about the Jeff Beck and the Johnny Depp, or are you ready to move on to what you saw?
I haven't really paid attention to Jeff Beck either, so I'll move
I
on.
know, man. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I know there's a lot of artifacts. There's a lot of energy to be drawn here in the Chamber of the Cosmos, and we talk about being a rock and roll disciple and being a part of the Brotherhood of Orpheus, man, and worshiping at the Electric Church is just, sometimes when I go to these shows, it's like I go with zero expectations. I just get completely blown away. And sometimes I go for the historical aspect of it just to be like, man, this guy invented this, or he was the godfather of this. He was the blueprint of this, or, it's important to kind of, from a historical standpoint, as I love all that, is to kind of to be able to immerse yourself in it, is to see these guys and just to be completely blown away by their skill and their caliber and the fucking majesty of it and the wizardry, man, the power. They're fucking goddamn wizards, all these older cats. Going back to Glenn Hughes is like he's on the young side. I think he's like still 69. He was super young when he started, like in his teens. So he's still 69, maybe just turned 70. He's one of the young, he's considered on the young side, and all these cats are getting older, but they're still fucking deliver, man. But that's it for me. We'll move on to see what who you were able to worship and who you saw at the Electric Church this time around.
Well, I'm delving back to September, and I was down in Frankston at Singing Bird Studios and caught a stoner band called Sasquatch. They're from Los Angeles. They've been around at least a decade, maybe a bit longer. Pretty small turnout because it's not a stoner-friendly town, I guess, Frankston. They go for the punk and metal more than the stoner, but really enjoyable set. And there was also a number of other bands on that bill which I enjoyed. Pieces of Molly were over from New Zealand who were supporting on that tour. Jack Harlon played, I think Full Tone Generator as well, and a couple of others. So, it was just an enjoyable, relaxing.
Oh, it was
night.
a full set, huh?
Yeah. It was. I think it was 6 bands. It was a big night. And speaking of Jack Harlon, I also caught them a week or two later with a few other bands, a bit of a mixed night, but it was a great night because obviously Jack Harlon we know and love on the Riff Crew, but they also played with Khan, who I guess are sort of the spacey side of stoner rock. I hadn't seen them for about 3 years, so it was good to catch their set. The opener was a band called Aplegate, which was, essentially a jazz band, which was pretty cool to, mix up the night or start the night off with a light set. And a band called Belligerent Goat, who were down from Queensland, and they had a didgeridoo player. So it was like a rock band.
That's
with a
awesome.
didgeridoo. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh, I enjoyed it. It was completely out of the blue because
What was he using? Was he playing into a microphone, or was he just playing straight into the audience? Did he have any?
yeah, I think it was mic'd at the bottom of the didgeridoo. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so it was full on rock band. Pretty chilled, but rock band with the didge. So
Nice. Very cool. I like it.
yeah, it's not something you normally
Very
see.
Australian.
Yeah, and sometimes when bands do that, it can be a bit of a gimmick and it doesn't fit the music. But I felt it really complemented or the way that they composed the music. Was a compliment to the music rather than just a gimmick.
Neat.
Yeah. I think the same weekend, I think it was the following night, I saw a triple bill out at Northcote Social Club, and that was Vanishing Point, Black Majesty, and Teramaze. Some of the bigger sort of power metal, prog metal type bands in Melbourne. Vanishing Point had some issues with technical issues, so their set was just mired with problems, unfortunately. One thing they did though is that they have a running in-joke within the band about coriander, and so the lead singer actually brought out essentially bouquets of coriander and threw them into the crowd, and so the whole venue just stunk of coriander by the end of the night.
That's funny.
Yeah. For me, the highlight of the show was seeing the Black Majesty guys. I've seen them a few times. For me, I'm not a power metal aficionado, but they might be the best power metal band in Australia. Speaking to the guitarist Henny after the show, and they had 9 shows in a row that they had cancelled, either because of lockdowns or someone got COVID or whatever. So it'd been a long stretch before they played a show, so it was really cool to see those guys again, because I just enjoy their music. They don't go too symphonic in terms of the power side of things. They still keep it fairly rooted in the heavy side, which is my preference. So it was cool to see them again. Then moving into October, we had the Desecrator farewell show. So Desecrator calling it a day. It wasn't their final show because they played a show up in Sydney after that, but it was a stacked bill, 8 bands. Killraiser came down from Sydney to play with them. And we had the big 4 of Melbourne thrash play for the first time together, which is Desecrator, In Malice's Wake, Harlott, and Mason. And so it was just a stacked bill. And they brought in the pyrotechnics for the end, and so there was confetti and everything like that when
really pyro,
set.
huh?
Yeah, it was massive. So it looked great as well at the end of the night when everything was going off and whatnot, and played a great set and encore and whatnot, and we'll see what the guys are up to next. But a fantastic night of thrash metal. Then I think 2 weeks later I saw one of the gigs of the year. I think we've talked about this previously just in our conversations, and that was Metal Gods featuring Ripper Owens and Simon Wright. And
Cool.
it was a weird show because it's hard to bill a band because it's called Metal Gods, but it's not like a band name that you might recognise, but you obviously recognise Ripper and Simon and the music they played, because half of the show was Priest and half the show was Dio stuff. So there was some solo stuff, Rainbow and Sabbath. And
oh wow!
Yeah, so it was the whole gamut, because obviously they wanted to cover the stuff that Simon played with Ronnie James Dio, and just an amazing night of heavy metal. It's just, because there's no higher or better classic heavy metal than I guess Priest and Dio stuff. So because
I'm pretty sure that Simon plays on this. I'm pretty sure he's on this DVD.
Yeah, because I think he played from about 92 or 94 up until 2005 or something like that. So over a decade. So fabulous night of just rock, and it was a great light show, and the crowd was into it, and Yeah, just it was just highly recommended.
What Sabbath did they play?
I think they only played Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell off the top of my head.
Well, that's good enough, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, but yeah, there was a bit of Rainbow, which was good.
I always carry Dio with me wherever I go. He's close to my heart. So
yeah, and there were very few people in the world, I'd say, who could pull off singing the Dio back catalogue, but Ripper was great. Like, surprisingly, like I didn't think he would do it as well as he did. So
wow,
yeah, so
impressive.
And obviously the pre stuff he did for 8 or 10 years or however long it was. So just a fabulous night. So I believe they might be playing shows in the UK. I don't know about the US, but definitely if you see them in town or see Metal Gods on the playbill, you'll know who it is and you'll know to buy yourself a ticket. Then towards the end of the month, the last weekend, I saw about 5 or 6 shows in a row. It was 5 or 6 days that I went to gigs, and it was a massive overload. And there were 3, I guess, standouts out of that run. And the first of those 3 was Heathen out from the Bay Area to play their thrash. They actually played the night before in Sydney. And they were driving to Melbourne, and because there were lots of floods at the time, they actually got delayed. So they arrived late, and they actually only finished the sound check 2 minutes before doors opened. So they were all kind of stressed out, getting there on time and stuff like that. But once they hit the stage, it was just fabulous. It was incredible just how catchy their songs are. Like the big choruses, like melodic choruses.
Yeah, a lot of people don't or forget that they're one of the, along with Metallica and Exodus and Testament, they were one of the original Bay Area thrash bands. Lesser known, but they came up during that whole Bay Area thrash period.
And to be honest, the new stuff stacks up as well as their old stuff. So it wasn't like, oh, we're gonna play some of the new stuff and it's the lull in the night or anything like that. The new stuff is really good as well.
Okay, wow.
So, yeah, it was just a great night of thrash, and they also played with 2 Aussie bands, Hidden Intent and Harlott, who are both great thrash bands as well in their own right. So it was a great night there. Then I think was it 2 nights later or the following night, I was off to Max Watts and caught a 6-band bill. It was a weird sort of lineup, headlined by King Parrot, who always pull a good crowd. But they put together a really strange lineup because they had Witch Skull coming down from Canberra, who play their sort of stoner doom variety. Either previously signed or currently signed with the Rise Above, so it's that kind of style. Black Rheno, also down from Sydney. They kind of have, it's hard to describe whether it's a groove metal type vibe.
What about King Parrot? What do they sound like?
It's kind of like punk. It's punk thrash grind.
So the genres were all over the place.
And in the middle of them all was a band called Spawn, who play this, it's kind of like world music style. They originally a doom band, but they've incorporated like a sitar and whatnot, and those kind of different influences.
More like a psychedelic kind of vibe.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think there's a synthesizer as well and stuff like that. So it's totally different. And the bands before those basically grindcore. So it was just a complete mix. So it was kind of like all over the place. So
that's cool. It's cool when that happens.
Yeah, and it was good having Spawn in the middle of it, because that way it's not just pummeling loud guitars all night. It was sort of the not the intermission, but the break of the routine, so that you could enjoy the other bands a bit more, which is the complete opposite of the last show I'll talk about, which was on Halloween. and that was a triple bill of death metal, and there was
Halloween night.
Yes.
Okay.
And
cool.
There was triple bill of death metal. Definitely no light influences on that night. It was co-headlined, I think, with Dead Congregation from Greece and Blood Incantation from the US, and it was supported by Altars, which is a local death metal band. And it was just a pummeling death metal. It's just, if that's your thing, it was just unrelenting. The band for me that stood out of the three was Blood Incantation. I'd never seen them or heard them before. They play.
That band sounds familiar.
Yeah,
they sound familiar.
I think they're from Denver or from that area.
Oh.
And they play an atmospheric style of death metal. So it's not. It's almost like sort of like ethereal, at the same time, hellish. So,
Interesting.
So
okay,
yeah, because
cool.
it's like they'll just play for like 10 or 15 minutes, and it'll just go all over the place, and it's it's almost like if you were going to combine prog with death metal, because I know that there was some death influences in their music. So it's more of a mood music rather than the hits, if you like. So I definitely recommend those guys if you see them in town. And welcome back to the Riff Crew. I hope you enjoyed that live footage. And now we're going to turn our attention to 2023 and some of the gigs coming up in the first couple of months. And I tell you what, Skull, is that you'll have to lock yourself in because this is just a snippet of the bands that are coming to Melbourne or to Australia. There's about 20 bands I'll talk about. So the first one on tour out from the US is Power Man 5000. Band that I'm not intimately familiar with, but they released an album I think 2 years ago, which I enjoyed, and they've got some really catchy tunes, so that should be a great tour. Also on tour in January, Thy Art Is Murder. I guess Aussie band getting around. They usually play a couple of tours in Australia each year, and they're playing some big venues, so check them out. Moving towards the middle of January, a band that no doubt you've heard of coming back to Australia, Mayhem. I think
nice.
they're playing 3 shows, but Yeah, I haven't seen them before, so hopefully I'll get an opportunity to see those
Oh
guys
yeah.
play. Have you seen them?
Oh yeah. Fucking incredible. You're in for quite a treat.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that wasn't with Dead and Euronymous, that Incantation or
No,
version.
not that lucky.
I think there'll be quite a few
Well,
people
we'll
who
talk
have.
about when you go see him. We'll talk more. I have a story. I
Okay,
have a story for everything.
and that
I'm
same
a
weekend
storyteller, man. I'm a storyteller.
you are. That same weekend over in Adelaide is the Churches of Steel Festival. It's headlined by Matt Maurer, who's the former vocalist of Mortal Sin. So no doubt, if you're a Mortal Sin fan, you might want to actually make the trip to Adelaide. I'm actually,
Cool.
if I don't go to Mayhem, I might end up in Adelaide to see that because that's it's something that probably won't be repeated. So definitely something for the Mortal Sin fans.
You better go, otherwise I'm gonna kick your ass.
Well, it's either that or Mayhem. So it's kind of like because it's the same
Oh, it's the
day.
same night?
Yeah, it's the same day. So it's like
Oh,
it's one or
well
the
then
other.
see Mayhem, and then you say go follow the other guy to, Adelaide or whatever.
No, they'll be on stage at the same time. So
Oh,
it's one of those
shit.
tough decisions. So we'll see how that pans out. The following week, Munitions, a local band here, are having their album launch. That's also headlined by Black Jesus, who's one of my favourite death metal bands getting around in Australia. Then towards the end of January, we've got Unearth out from the United States, and they're playing again at 6 or 7 bands on that bill with King Parrot. So it's going to be a big night. Moving to February, Bremelin are playing a show at the Avalon Hotel with Golgotha Remains, who unfortunately cancelled last year because they had flight issues. They had a show in July, and unfortunately they couldn't make it because of the airlines having brain farts or whatever issues that they're having at the present time. It seems like don't book with Qantas at the moment. And also the same night, again, depending on where you are in Australia, we have the Cockney Rejects touring Australia. So I'm not sure if you ever got into those guys, Skull.
The band from the 70s?
Yeah, 70s, 80s, yeah, Cockney Rejects. Yeah, still going around.
They were glam rock from the mid 70s, right?
Nah, punk.
Or am I thinking of something else?
Might be a different band you're thinking of, but they have been
I'm thinking
around a
okay, I'm
long
thinking of a
time.
different band.
Yeah. Also that weekend, it just popped up in my ad feed was something that came out of left field. I might actually go to. It's called The Music of Ennio Morricone and the Wild West. So,
Cool.
not sure the people behind that, but if they can pull that off, that should be an enjoyable night. That's at the Thornbury Theatre here in Melbourne. And then the following night, we've got Take coming out from Norway, so a bit of black metal, along with Atolah, I think it's pronounced, from the United States. So that's going to be a big night of black metal, along with the Mayhem tour. The following week is again just a packed week of touring. We've got Jeff Tate coming out for his Empire tour. So I think it was 2 years ago, or it'll be 3 years ago, he came out on Operation Mindcrime tour. So he's back out again. So he'll play that whole Empire album plus a few other tunes. The Exploited are also booked to tour. I think Waddy had a heart attack recently, so I don't know.
He's always having heart attacks.
I know. It's probably number 5.
That's
I think.
a part of the show.
But it's a bit like the pyrotechnics. It's just bursting out of his chest.
It's part of admission. If Waddy doesn't have a heart attack, you get your money back.
Yeah. So I've got no idea whether that's actually going to go ahead because the show they had to stop because
They're amazing. If they come, you should go see that. And by the way, I was thinking of a band called Cockney Rebels. I know Cockney Rejects. I got them twisted up for some reason. There's a band called Cockney Rebels. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw The Exploited in 2007, and it was a great night. So it was good. Yeah. I think it was pre all the heart attacks as well. So maybe I got ripped off. I'm not sure.
Pre-heart attack.
Yeah. That same week, we've got the DC Boys, so Local Lads for You, Darkest Hour coming out to Australia. So I think it's the first time out in 8 or 9 years. So it's been a while between stints for them. That moves us to the middle of February. If you're up in Canberra Metal Fest is going to be on. That's 2 days of metal, lots of different styles. Lots of great bands, so check that out if you're up there. Arch Enemy are also on tour. Band that I've dabbled with a little bit, but I guess not gone too deep into.
They're good. They're great.
Another band, Anvil, coming out. We were talking about this before we recorded the shows, so they're coming out.
Classic heavy metal shows. Band. Yeah.
Yep. And then towards the end of the month, there's 3 shows on the final weekend of February. One is 1,000 Mods, which is a Greek stoner band playing at the Corner Hotel, but also touring across Australia. We have Psy coming out from Japan. They were actually originally booked to play 1 show, so they were going to come out to Australia just for the 1 show, but it was sold out. So they've booked a 2nd show in Melbourne. So if you're not in Melbourne, it's bad luck, basically. It's too bad, so sad if you're not in Melbourne, because you'll miss out on Psy. And that same weekend, we've got a great local festival called Flippin' the Bird, which I've caught the last few years. So again, it's going to be one of those difficult decisions, which show to go to. But I guess it's a good problem to have. So that's for me for the next couple of months. How about yourself?
Jesus Christ, man! But that's quite a lineup you have there. I think I was mentioning that around here during the winter time, things kind of slow down. I've been looking at my many different websites and clubs and everything. It's really just a handful. So I mean, you have quite a bit of awesome bands coming your way to Australia. I'm jealous, but for right now, for me, just a handful. There's a band called The Rush Experience, Rush cover band. And I'm like, if they're coming to the Tally Ho, it's only like $10 or whatever. I'm like, fuck it, it'll be fun. Rush isn't playing. Getty and Alex aren't jamming. Neil's up in the Great Gig in the Sky, as we know. Until the lads get back together and do something, I'll just do this just for fun. It's called the Rush Experience. It's at the Tally Ho. That's January 14th. And then a week later at the Black Cat in DC, there's an old school hardcore punk show. The FUs are playing. They're from Boston. They're old school legendary hardcore punk band from Boston called the FUs. They evolved and morphed into a band called the Straw Dogs, which is in my circle of friends. We Are Not Amused is one of our favorite hardcore albums of all time. I'm sure we'll talk about that sometime in the future on the Realm. But they actually opening for a band called the Goons. I'm really there for the FUs, but the Goons is a local DC band that was on Discord. I'm there for the FUs. That would be fucking awesome. The lead singer is still in the band, John Socks, he was a singer that ended up in the Straw Dogs. I'd like to chat with him a bit about it. If there being any Straw Dog reunions, and then at the State Theater, there's a band called the Artemis Pyle Band. It's the original. One of the original drummers from Leonard Skinner from the 70s. I don't know why he's not playing with them now. He hasn't played with them in decades, but for whatever reason, he wants to get back into music, and he's doing his own thing, and he's touring, and they're basically playing Leonard Skinner, even though Skinner is still playing and touring. And that could be fun to go see. But that's about it for me. There's just a handful of bands that are on for right now on my radar right now. Like I said, I was going to wait. This is going to drop in a week or so. This will be our January episode. but when I start looking in early January, mid-January, I'm sure a lot more shows are going to start popping up, just popping up out of nowhere. But I think that's it for right now. You have anything else to add before we end the show?
That should be fine with me. I'll just have some light reading for the rest of the day.
Light reading.
Yeah.
with your L. Ron Hubbard Scientology. Oh man. Well, you have a lot. That'll be a lot of fun, I'm sure. But reading a terrible grade Z science fiction by some lunatic. But anyway, we all know why we're here. It's it's the Electric Church. We're here to worship at the Electric Church and the music and all of our heroes. And everyone should go out there and experience it firsthand, going to shows, just absorbing the power and the energy of the music. And just want to say, always remember, look to the stars, carry that torch of enlightenment, and strive to be a disciple of rock and roll and the Brotherhood of Orpheus. Rock and roll.
You back again. I fall smooth, I break down. so don't beat us anymore on your life. Ow! When the dice turn, we'll let the tension burn. Not on the hands of the worker, but the public servants who thought their pockets would reach so deep as to hide their bloodied hands. They're pouring shows in a world of waves. So we're kicking you down and we're calling you out. We're not pulling out our chains. We're taking what's ours. Your whole world is watching, so don't beat us anymore on your life. I said the whole world is watching, so don't beat us anymore on your life. Oh! Sing for yourself. Sing for yourself. We're taught not to breathe. We're taught not to breathe. So we're kicking you down. We're calling you out. We're not pulling up our chains. We're taking what's ours. The whole world is watching, so don't beat us anymore on your life. I said the whole world is watching, so don't beat us anymore on your life. Ow!
you later. This body's addicted to brass. It's time to bring a stand. Let's go and strike. We don't want to fight. Time's time to spend. No tell rebel. You lose the win, you lose the fucking winning. Ready for the day to come out and fight. 9 to 5, trying to survive. In the fucking hell from a stem of life. Run for my God. Ashes the fear. The playing is trash. Going to fears. The killing kicked in. The damning taste to go. I'm addicted. What is it knowing? They turn to flash and get through. They turn to flash, I'm addicted. They turn to flash and get through. They turn to fucking the pulse break, there is no escape. Guaranteed this is all you need. Look at yourself, is it so you wanna bring idiot control? What we see, you think you're present victory, you get the fucking gold. Buy you a time, gonna get in the pit and explode. I'm addicted. Addicted to trash, addicted to. Addicted to trash, I'm addicted. Addicted to trash, addicted to. Addicted to fucking trash. Hey, 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 hey. One last chance, Melbourne. Come on, Lord, suicide. I don't hit the fucking lie. Come on, Lord, suicide. I don't hit the fucking lie. Come on, Lord, suicide. I don't hit the fucking lie. Come on, Lord, suicide. I don't hit the fucking lie. Addicted to fast, addicted to. Addicted to fast, I'm addicted. Addicted to fast, addicted to. We've been hitting them tents. Fuck yeah, we're gonna have new album over there, vinyl, patches, CDs. We're from Adelaide, we're going to Tasmania tomorrow. We appreciate your support, thank you very much. Let's get that fucking pen moving, kill fest. Come on, man. Come on, get it fucking going.
alcohol. It's cool.
Woo! We're Pizza Death. My favourite part about that song is when we say Pizza Death. Woo!
And up your cheese first, the greatest is coming. And they will not stop until they shred you all. They'll tear you apart, they'll do every serious point until they consume your blistering remains. What's all about them? Greatest of death. 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 The giant fires rage and they desecrate the entire with the will of Owens. She's not to bubble and burn. What the darling bit of things, why should they renting place for a beat? What's hell about death? Greatest of death. What's hell about death? Greatest of death! What's hell about death? Greatest of death! What's hell about death? Just look at yourself. Or you're just slipping away. Let me know something else that you need to say. Just look at yourself.
we're going to play a song now about Gary's favourite childhood toy. That is a Beyblade. This is Blades!
This one's called The Groganator. Cheers, you fucking pissants!